Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JPMorgan Chase, just issued a stark warning. America is in danger. The country is relying too much on foreign supply chains, and if the US doesn't act now, it risks losing the ability to make things at home. Even Wall Street's most powerful banker says it. America is forgetting how to build. Look around. The jobs that once defined the nation are vanishing at a shocking pace. In October 2025 alone, over 150,000 Americans lost their jobs, the worst October in more than 20 years. Entire industries are being gutted. Warehouses, once a lifeline for working families, cut tens of thousands of positions. Tech companies slashed over 33,000 jobs in a single month. And it's not slowing down. In just 10 months, more than 1 million jobs have disappeared. A staggering surge from last year. Hiring has stalled, investments frozen, and towns once built on factories and tech hubs are now hollowing out. Shops closing, families leaving, communities fading. If you work, invest, or even buy American-made goods, this affects you. Just look at what is happening in the UK right now. Britain is collapsing before our eyes, with car production at a 73-year low, factories closing, and tens of thousands losing their jobs as high energy costs and crushing taxes make manufacturing impossible. What's happening in the UK is now echoing across the US, and it's a warning Americans can't ignore. If this continues, the United States could follow the same path, a once dominant industrial power that forgot how to make things. The fallout won't just be lost jobs. It could erode the very foundation of the American middle class. So before we go deep, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. You need to see the reality before it's too late. Now let's get into the details. Right now, the United Kingdom is falling apart. Here's the hard truth. Manufacturing output is shrinking again. In September 2025, the manufacturing PMI fell to 46.2, its lowest in 5 months. Remember, anything below 50 means decline. Energy-intensive industries, paper, metals, chemicals, have dropped to a 35-year low. When factories stop, jobs vanish. When jobs vanish, communities weaken. And that's happening now. This isn't just about Britain. When workers in the UK and the US lose industrial jobs, it signals something bigger. The rise of China as the world's manufacturing powerhouse. China now produces nearly 29% of global manufacturing output, more than the US, Europe, or any other region. Meanwhile, the UK's share of world manufacturing value has plunged even further. So if the UK and US are shedding production, who's picking it up? China. When Western industries fade, the world still needs goods, electronics, and auto parts. And more of them now come from China. Here's the striking part. Despite all the promises, Donald Trump's economic strategy is flashing red. He's fumbling an opportunity that could have put the country on stronger ground. Take Michigan, one of Trump's key manufacturing targets. He vowed to bring factories and jobs back, but the numbers say otherwise. According to the University of Michigan, manufacturing employment keeps falling, especially in transportation equipment. Since 2023, the state has lost about 23,900 factory jobs, over 80,000 in total during the past year. And new steel and aluminum tariffs could erase another 2,300 auto jobs by 2026. Policies meant to protect workers are instead deepening layoffs. Then there's Ohio. Trump called it a manufacturing goldmine, yet it's among the worst states for factory job losses. Since 2000, Ohio has shed hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs. Analysts say new industrial growth isn't going to the Rust Belt anymore. It's heading south, to the Sun Belt. In short, Trump's so-called industrial comeback states are shrinking. Tariffs, policy confusion, high energy costs, and skill gaps are driving jobs away. Michigan and Ohio aren't seeing revival. They're seeing retreat. The bold rhetoric of making America great again meets harsh reality in the factory heartland. If this strategy can't deliver results where it was supposed to win, what chance does it have nationwide? Trump's only play is blanket tariffs with no real plan. The same mistake the UK made when it followed Washington's lead instead of rebuilding industries for its people. So, let's take a closer look at the situation of the US particularly. In October 2025, employers announced the loss of 153,000 jobs, the worst October for layoffs in more than 2 decades. The pace of cuts leapt some 175% above October 2024 and nearly tripled the number from September. These losses are not scattered randomly. They're concentrated in the most vulnerable sectors. Technology companies slashed over 33,000 jobs in October alone, up from just thousands the prior month. Warehousing and logistics, which boomed during the pandemic, cut nearly 48,000 positions as automation and overcapacity bite. Retail chains, too, face a brutal squeeze. Weaker consumer spending, store closures, and rising costs are forcing massive staff reductions. We're watching what might be a terrible misstep by Donald Trump unfold in real time, and the warning signs couldn't be clearer. And yet, Washington calls this a recovery. If this is recovery, what does collapse look like? First, the story with the United States Trade Representatives' negotiations with Canada and Mexico under the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, is raising alarm. Trump has repeatedly threatened to reinstate tariffs, pulled talks into uncertainty, and left Canada and Mexico to strengthen ties between themselves, instead of with the U.S. Canada's Prime Minister recently said that talks with Washington have paused and will slide into the USMCA review process. Instead of securing America's position, Trump appears to be losing influence with 2 of its closest trade partners. The result? The U.S. is losing trust while others are working together. Trade deals aren't just diplomacy. They decide where factories open, who gets hired, and which country builds the future. Then there's China. Trump hailed his summit meetings and signed what were announced as wins. But beneath the surface, those deals are thin, conditional, and far from secure. One expert commentary warned that the agreement with China revealed the limits of Trump's tariff war, that we're basically back where we started. Yes, China made small gestures, buying some U.S. soybeans, easing a few export controls, but these aren't the kind of structural shifts that reduce America's dependency or fix its trade deficit. What's worse, experts say Beijing still holds the cards and is playing a deeper game, letting Trump claim a deal while keeping the leverage. So where does that leave the U.S.? It's being squeezed on 2 fronts. With Canada and Mexico drifting, the North American trade axis is fragile. With China making small concessions but refusing to yield real power in critical sectors, from rare earths to advanced tech, the U.S. remains in a weak position. Trump's bold talk of great deals and bringing jobs back rings hollow when allies aren't aligned and rivals are still running circles around him. Unless there's a coherent long-term plan, not just tariff theater, things won't improve. They'll deteriorate further. The U.S. may soon face shrinking manufacturing, less bargaining power, and rising economic risk. It's not collapse yet, but if this continues, it's heading dangerously close. Let's go back to the United Kingdom, a country further down the path of industrial decline. What began decades ago in its mills and shipyards is now ending in quiet closures and broken supply chains. Britain is becoming the first major economy to fully de-industrialize, according to some analysts. The UK has lost vast portions of its factory capacity. In some sectors, output has fallen back to 1950s levels. Towns once built on manufacturing are now hollowed out. Why does that matter for you in the US? Because the path is starting to look the same. Rising input costs, weak investment, and policy indecision, all leading to industrial shrinkage. The US is entering that same zone. And if you live in a manufacturing region, you're already seeing it happen. In Britain, they lost the factories, the suppliers, and the skills. Rebuilding takes decades. America still has the advantage, but only if it acts now. If not, the same pattern will play out here. Fewer plants, fewer jobs, weaker regional economies, lower productivity, and heavier tax burdens. And while the UK government was distracted by global commitments, US policymakers are doing the same, spending heavily abroad while the industrial base at home quietly fades. Britain is what happens when a nation stops building, and America is now walking the same road. Meanwhile, the US is also having another issue that makes things much worse. Right now, one of the starkest signs of trouble is that shipping and cargo traffic between China and the United States has collapsed. According to reporting, the number of container ships en route from China to the US has dropped to about 41 vessels, the lowest since February 2024, and down roughly 42% in just 3 weeks from already low levels. Worse still, TEUs, which are standard containers carried from Asia to US ports, have plunged to their lowest levels in over a year. Each empty cargo lane is a snapshot of a slowing America. Chinese exports globally fell 1.1% in October, driven by a 25% drop in shipments to the US alone. Why is it scary? Because when trade slows like this, it undercuts manufacturing, warehouse work, transport, port jobs, global supply chains, and then consumer access. A country like the US depends not just on making things, but on moving things. When that stops, the ripple moves fast. The fact that China's shipments to the US are dropping while China itself is diversifying to Southeast Asia and Africa only signals one thing: the US is losing ground. The consequences are fewer jobs, fewer contracts, idle assets, potential price spikes, or shortages. And this is unfolding now. The fact that these logistics indicators are flashing red should alarm anyone paying attention. Now turn to negotiations with two of America's closest neighboring trade partners, Canada and Mexico, plus a new potential deal with Switzerland. These talks are supposed to anchor US manufacturing recovery by securing affordable raw materials, stable supply chains, and favorable export channels. Instead, they're dragging, showing the US is failing to lock in a strategic trade advantage. This week, the Office of the United States Trade Representative announced that it is in talks with Swiss officials and representatives from Mexico, while liberalizing discussions remain vague and unfinished. The fact that the US claims that Switzerland is quite eager to invest in US sectors like aircraft, pharmaceuticals, and gold smelting might sound positive, but such talks should already have concrete frameworks, not just eager investors. Meanwhile, Mexico and Canada, historically reliable trade companions under the USMCA agreement, are now forced to renegotiate under duress and uncertainty. Here's the scary bit. When your trade allies start hesitating, when your export pipelines remain unsecured and your import costs rise, you're exposing your entire manufacturing base to risk. You promised revival, you promised backbone industry resurgence, and instead, you're waiting, negotiating, but not delivering. The delay means jobs stay uncreated, factories stay idle, and domestic production stays dependent on what others will allow. Combine that with mismeasured tariffs and unstable policy signals, and you have the perfect storm for manufacturing weakness. The US is not just losing the fight for jobs, but also losing the strategic ground needed to make things again, not simply for today, but for years ahead. Factories can be rebuilt, but only if leadership stops repeating the same mistakes. For more updates, be sure to subscribe to the channel and watch out for our next video.